Back in the early 90s, when I was a wild teenager, I met John at a party through my friend Cindy. John was an old high school friend of her brother, and he was in town for a short visit. I was 16 and he was 21. I thought John was cute and he was definitely flirting with me. He lived halfway across the USA, so I figured I would never see him again when he left, but then he asked for my address and phone number so we could keep in touch. My 16-year-old self was fucking giddy. This hot 21-year-old guy wants to stay in touch. Hell yes, you can have my info. I should note that I was a very mature 16 because I have 5 older siblings with only 9 years between me and the eldest. I never saw the creepy in a 21-year-old guy hitting on a 16-year-old girl. Others did, but I ignored their criticism. As soon as John got home, he called me long distance. Then letters started arriving, sometimes several per week. Soon a letter arrived with stamps all over it, indicating it was mailed from jail. He got into some trouble he refused to tell me about, but said he wouldn't be in jail long 'cause he was innocent. Months go by, and John was still writing at least once a week. I was living with my parents, but they were never home in the afternoon. I always got the mail when I was home from school, avoiding them seeing the prison-stamped letters being sent to their 16-year-old. The letters started getting a lot more personal. He drew me pictures. He wrote poems. He went on and on about what kind of life he wanted. He asked for me to send pics. Then he wanted sexier pics. I wrote him every 2 weeks or so, not nearly the amount of letters he was sending me. One day John calls and says he's out of jail for the time being, but he still had to go to court for some shit, so he might get locked up again. I tried to find out why, but he wouldn't tell me. He said it don't matter because he was innocent, and it was all fucked up, etc., etc., etc. He started calling again, a lot. I was 17 now and rarely ever home, so he started calling later and later at night, which got me in trouble. He was getting more and more obsessed with constantly knowing everything I did. This guy was not my boyfriend. I never said he was, and even we discussed guys I liked and dates I went on, but he has totally changed his attitude over time. I was tired of interrogations, so one night when he had called, I lied and said I hadn't done anything. I was sick in my room sleeping. I just wanted to get off the phone and go to bed. He flipped out and proceeded to tell me exactly what I had done that night and named the people I was with. My brain broke, and I just hung up and took the phone off the hook. After a sleepless night, I called everyone the next day. John was 1,000 miles away, yet somehow he knew where I was last night. And he knew like the instant I got home because the phone started ringing before I could even close the front door. What the fuckity fuck, right? No one knew anything about it. I talked to Cindy and her brother. They hadn't talked to him. Her bro said they were old high school buddies, but he hadn't really known the guy for years and didn't know what the fuck I was talking about. Now a larger number of people were freaked out. The circle of inquiry expanded as everyone tried to figure it out. We found no answers. John called every night, but I didn't answer. After 10 p.m., I would take the phone off the hook in my bedroom. My older siblings would have all moved out at this point, and my parents never noticed. So he wrote more letters detailing the things I was doing and who I was with, telling me how much I meant to him, and he couldn't understand why I couldn't talk to him. The letters were still postmarked from his home state, and calls still coming in from his area code, so I was pretty sure he wasn't in town. But how the fuck was he getting this information? I continued to ignore his calls and didn't write back. I was hoping he would be bored and give up. I didn't want to get the cops involved because I didn't want any of my letters getting dragged into anything, because I told him some personal stuff I didn't exactly want other people reading. Through the stuff I said, it was just minor drama stuff. I really didn't like cops and didn't want them involved in my life. Finally, I was on the verge of going to the police. I actually started writing out a statement with a timeline and sorted the pile of letters from him. But then, the phone calls and letters suddenly stopped. A month later, I got another letter covered in stamps. He was back in jail, and as crazy as ever. It was like fucking 20 pages. Front and back, wall to wall, pure batshit crazy, with doodles covering every square inch of the paper. I wrote back, a single page with only Enough words that explains that if he ever called or wrote again, I would take every single paper he had ever written to me and send copies to the police in his local city, the warden of the jail he was in, and to his old high school buddy, Cindy's brother, so he could spread the word of John's craziness back through his old acquaintances. I never heard from John again. I also never figured out who was stalking me, or all my friends back then. I can't think of any of them would have been playing spy for this guy and lie about it. I even tried switching up the people I was hanging out with, but John would still know, and his letter would be like, "Did you have fun after school on Tuesday with your new friend? And are you working on an assignment together?" I didn't have a cell phone. I didn't have a home computer. I didn't talk on the phone about things he knew about. The only thing I can come up with is John must have paid someone to watch me, because without the internet, this guy managed to stalk me from 1,000 miles away. To this day, no one in my family knows about this.
Long time reader, first time writer and all that jazz. So this story isn't mine but my good friend's. So we come from a country town in Australia. This town is like 5 pubs, 1 grocery store and 2 petrol stations. So when something happens, word travels pretty quickly. But anyway, my friend, let's call Jake, works at one of the bars which has a drive-thru attached when working a late night shift. When his co-worker hears someone approach, so goes outside to tend to the person. When a car never pulls up, Jake walks outside to find an older man holding a large machete to his co-worker's face. And the exchange of word takes place, then the machete man bolts. The pub and few other close and police are looking all over for the man with a machete. Hours pass by and nothing happens, so the police maintain a heavy presence. Jake's shift finishes and he leaves work. Starts walking from the bar to his car about 100 meters away. He notices a strange set of shapes and colours under his car. He waves a cop down, presumably passing by, and the investigator says everything is still very tense. You can't be too safe. It ends up being our old pal Machete hiding completely nude under the car. When the police questioned the man, his reasons for lying under the car was because he was fixing the car for the trip. He was probably on drugs or something, I don't know, but maybe he thought Jake was the original co-worker. And when he realized his mistake, he wanted to get the fuck out. I know people hate it, but Machete bro, let's not meet please.
The Man with the Long Knife. Narrated by CreepyBatenberg. I have a good friend called Gerald, who lives and works in Lloret de Mar in Spain. It was approaching his birthday, so me and my friends decided we would all fly out and celebrate with him. We planned to have a barbecue party with him on his birthday night. On the morning of the party, we decided that we would go into town and do a bit of shopping. The morning then turned into a full day. After spending hours in the sunshine, we decided to head into a bar to cool down. The sun was bleaching down, and by this time a cold beer was definitely needed. A few drinks later, some of our group decided to head back to the campsite to prepare for Gerald's birthday barbecue. Our friend Malcolm and Gerald's mother Jennifer left to go and prepare and reminded us not to be late or to get too drunk. Myself, Christine, Kerry and Lauren stopped behind for a few more drinks. And a few more. And then, when the shots of Jägermeister came out, I knew the night would end in trouble. However, at this point in time, we were 4 carefree girls enjoying a holiday. After a few hours, we lost track of time before noticing that we were already late for Gerald's birthday barbecue. And knowing Gerald, he would be furious at this. When we stepped outside, we noticed that the sun had disappeared, and it was now night, and the fresh air immediately hit us like a brick in the face. Kerry and Lauren were the worst out of a bad lot, so we decided that it would be best to walk to the taxi rank, as it was a long walk to the campsite, and in our drunken state, it would take even longer. About half an hour later, we finally staggered to the taxi rank and were point blank refused because of Lauren being a mortal mess. We argued, but it was pointless. We were not getting a taxi. Lauren at this point was raging, and she actually threw a punch at the taxi driver. I was thinking we were going to end up getting locked up, so we had to scuttle away from the taxi rank, me and Christine dragging Lauren by the arms. I was starting to get pissed off. We already had to backtrack to go to the taxi rank, and now we had the long walk back to the campsite. We started to walk along the long road that seems to last forever. It was a straight road with a couple of shops on either side. As we dragged Lauren along the road and had to pick her off the floor a few times, we noticed over the other side of the road a strange looking man just staring at us. He was wearing a long trench coat. He had dark hair and beady eyes. Kerry pointed him out, and every time we stopped to pick up Lauren or have a rest, he stopped over the road and just stared. Kerry then noticed him taking a phone call, and a black BMW appeared to be trailing behind the man. At this point we really started to worry. Surely all this couldn't be a coincidence. We rang the others at the campsite for someone to walk and meet us, but no one was answering. As we went on along the road, so did the man and the black BMW, stopping every time we stopped. All that was going through my mind was, are we going to make it back? What do they want with us? Are we going to be on a crime show in years to come, chopped up and put in a suitcase? Will I ever see my loved ones again? We were coming towards the end of the road and had to cross over. As we did, the man stopped and waited for us to cross over too. Lauren, still rowdy, started shouting, "What the fuck do you want?" And he opened his coat slightly to show a long knife blade. We knew then we had to run the short distance to the campsite. We rang Malcolm, and this time he picked up. We told him to come and meet us and gave him a brief update. As we made it to the crossing, we picked up speed, the man still lurking behind as well as the car. We got to the campsite and felt instant relief, as we knew they could not get onto the site without a pass, and were thankful when we saw the security guard. We filled them in, and they walked to the campsite gates to see if that man had gone. He wasn't gone. He just stood, looking into the site, never speaking a word, just staring with the car behind him. He eventually left after 30 minutes. To this day, we don't know what he wanted, or what would have happened if he managed to get one of us. So, to the man in the trench coat with the long knife, let's not meet again.